Hello everyone, this is Lisa Galarno. I am a member of the Resistance, and I'm also the founder of the Planetary Liberation Front. I want to teach you today some skills, sort of the art and science of how to protest or how to resist online. So I thought what I would do is spend 20 or 30 minutes going through my process, the things that I do on a daily basis to really try to keep these issues top of mind by putting articles and other sorts of content, images, videos, etc. In my various streams so that my audiences are able to look at the sorts of information I'm looking at and sort of go on a journey of discovery with me each and every day. So today is January 19th of 2017. Donald Trump will be inaugurated tomorrow, as far as we know, and there's quite a resistance movement going on right now, including the Women's March, which is going to be happening on Saturday. Now, not all of us are able to participate in the march. I'm actually disabled. I have a chronic lower back and hip problem, which makes it very difficult for me to walk long distances. So I'm going to do my best to support the efforts from behind the scenes. I'm going to be using Twitter, Facebook, Medium, perhaps LinkedIn, and perhaps even YouTube in some cases, in order to support the movement and proliferate all of the best information we can find. In the era of fake news, I think it's really important to have people like me who are what you might call expert filters. So I've been looking at a lot of this news for quite a long time, and I have a fairly good sense at this point what news is valid and what news might be propaganda, rhetoric, or even what they call fake news, which is a term that's being used far too widely at this point, but you do have to sort of be aware and use your discernment about the news sources that you choose to pay attention to and that you're asking other people to pay attention to. So I thought I would just start off by letting you know what I do on a daily basis. I have various sites that I check. I often start with Twitter, which we'll do right now. I actually have two different Twitter accounts that I use. One of them is my standard real name Twitter account, and I also have a Twitter account associated with Anonymous, as I am anonymous and have been for several years now. So I will also show you that Twitter account. But to give you a sense of what I do to begin with, I typically go to the Twitter homepage. I have the account set up already. You can see I've got quite a few tweets. I follow a lot of people, and this is something that not everybody understands, but your Twitter stream, so all of the information that shows up when you go to the homepage, is based on your followers. Who you are following. In addition, you have followers, so I have close to 2,300 followers, and I follow 3,400 people or so. So what I typically do is I go through the stream. I know who some of these accounts are. A lot of them are accounts that I'm following. There are also various hashtags. So Hillary is my president, things like that. So I kind of scroll through, and at this point, what I'm really looking for is important news about what's going on with Trump, what's going on with the cabinet, and all of these sorts of things. So for instance, right here, we have a tweet from the Democrats, who I follow, that Claire McCaskill is questioning Mnuchin on Trump's conflicts of interest. So this has been an ongoing theme these last few days. So what I'll do is I will retweet that to my followers. Sometimes I like things as well. Sometimes I like things without retweeting them. I think giving that sort of feedback is important so that people continue, to work on these issues. I'm not paying attention to Bank of America news, and I'm not sure why I'm following them, actually. No, I'm not. They just are there for some other reason. Promoted tweet. That's what that is. Okay, so GOP senators challenged Trump on Secretary of State's prospect Marco Rubio. So this is from Fox News, which is interesting. The person who tweeted this is someone I follow who is part of the resistance. also part of Black Lives Matter, Off Trump, Op Resistance. So this is an anonymous person here. So I'll go ahead and retweet that, even though Fox News is not one of my favorite sources of information, I must say. But we can go ahead and do that. And so we can keep looking through here and we'll see all sorts of things that come up. I'm interested in spiritual topics. I'm interested in extraterrestrials. So all sorts of things. But look, here's Think Progress, who I love. They say there's a disturbing report on Trump's national security advisor that emerged on a pro-Putin website. So as a former military intelligence person, I was actually a Russian linguist in the late 80s, not for long, but for a while. I'm sort of sensitive to a lot of these claims regarding Russia and espionage and all of those sorts of things. So here's another one. This guy, I'm not sure who that guy is. He apparently lied about meeting with the ethics chiefs, so we're going to retweet that. I usually go for things that aren't really mudslinging, but I'm looking for truth. So I'm looking for things with journalistic integrity, and then I often retweet them. So this is somebody that I don't follow yet, so I'm going to follow Elizabeth Resist, and I'm also going to like her thing there. So this is what I typically do, and I also tend to look at some of the specific hashtags. So over here I'll see what's trending. So this one is pretty horrible, actually. Rename Million Women March. And all of these people are saying really horrible things, unfortunately, about the protesters. So I took a look at that, but I'm pretty much just decided to ignore that. One of the hashtags, though, that I do keep an eye on is the hashtag called The Resistance. So I take a look here, and the thing about the hashtags is you can see both the most popular items that have been tweeted using that hashtag, or you can look for the latest, you can look for people using the hashtag, photos, videos, etc. So I follow a bunch of these people already. Scott Dworkin has been tireless. He's been tweet storming constantly, and he comes up with some really interesting information. So I try to retweet the things that he's tweeted. There's a big boycott Trump campaign that we're working on. There's the anti-Trump that often tweets in this particular hashtag as well. And so just anything that resonates with me, I take a look at and I retweet things. And often when there are articles, I actually dig into the articles. So let me find one of the articles. Okay, let's take a look at this one. So this is The Hill, which I think is a pretty good news source. But I often base my decisions about what to post if I've seen other news items like this, and I have seen a bunch. So I will often look at the article, and then sometimes I will choose to share it as well on Facebook or on Google+. So because I'm very interested in these ties to Russia as a former military intelligence person, I will retweet this to my Facebook page. I'll share it on my Facebook page. So you can do various things. So you can share on your own timeline, you can share in groups, you can share on pages that you're associated with. You just pull this drop down here down. You can also share things on a friend's timeline, but I'm going to share this on my timeline. I will share it publicly, although you don't have to share things publicly. And so then if I open another tab and take a look at my Facebook, I've now cross-posted it on Facebook. So going back to Twitter, my computer is not as fast as it could be, especially not when I'm screen capturing, but hopefully you find this useful. Then I can go and take a look at my notifications, which I often do. So what I'm doing with the notifications is I'm seeing, okay, who's following me, what are they liking or retweeting. I make sure that if they're following me or retweeting me or liking my content, that I follow them back. I think that that's really important. So here's a resistance person that I had not yet followed back. I also try to retweet other people's retweets of my content. So it can get a little bit complicated, but your notifications are good for figuring out sort of who's in your orbit, if you will. One of the things that we also do when we're tweet storming is we try to get particular hashtags to trend. So right now the hashtags are fairly mixed. A lot of jokey stuff and sports stuff, and I guess it's National Popcorn Day. But we can take a look at Rick Perry, who's in the midst of Senate confirmation, I believe. Right, this guy with the is going to be the Secretary of Energy, and apparently doesn't know what it means to be the Secretary of Energy. So I retweet some of those things as well. So I'll often spend maybe a half hour working on Twitter. I do that like a few times a day. I also have multiple accounts, and I could use TweetDeck or something like that, or Hootsuite, but I actually find those sorts of things to be a little bit too overwhelming. And I like to keep the work that I do in social, I like to keep it organic rather than trying to automate too many things. So here's a couple more accounts I can follow, although with my anonymous account, you can see I'm following 5,000 people already. But I have 40,000 tweets. I've been working on this account, gosh, for a very long time at this point, probably 4 or 5 years. So, same sort of thing. I take a look at my notifications to see what's going on. I often will retweet things from my other accounts. This one is a bit of a mixed bag. I have all sorts of things in here, but Anonymous isn't very well understood. But Anonymous is actually an idea, and they really resonate with me in some ways because of the values that they support. They're really into truth and justice and acceptance and solidarity and all of these sorts of things. So I use my anonymous account at times. There have been times in the past when I've tweeted all sorts of things about the horrible situation in Syria, for example, and there are photographs that, you know, most people honestly can't handle. So I use my anonymous account for things like that. For a while I was using it for anything political as well because I didn't want to bother any of my other audiences, but because I'm protesting at the moment, I've become a lot more open about some of my other activities. So let's talk about Facebook for a few minutes. Facebook is honestly one of my best sources of news. And the reason it is because I've cultivated a fairly large group of groups and individuals that I follow, and so I'm able to sort of look through my stream, and I see, you know, all sorts of things. So here's something from the New York Times about where all the women's marches are occurring. I think I might have shared that already on my page, but I'm going to do that again. And feminism groups, Futures Without Violence, a lot of women's marches groups. I belong probably to 1,000 groups or more. And I find a lot of really, really great news here, and I find other people to follow that I agree with. And sometimes I just like things, and sometimes I just share things. On Twitter, I feel like I can share as much as I want, and I don't feel like it's a problem. But on Facebook I try to be a little more discreet, you know, because there are so many people who are on Facebook and who, you know, don't necessarily want to see protest and resistance all day long. But it's what I'm doing right now. You can see that I changed my banner image, and I changed this to support the march on Saturday, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to continue to resist, this situation with Trump and what I will call his regime, because it is just so anti-democracy, and it's just awful. And I think it's really important for people who have a perspective and who've been around for a while and see the slippery slope of tyranny, control, and domination that we're on, to do something about it. So I use my words are my weapons. I'm nonviolent, and I promote nonviolence and compassion and unity for the most part. But there are some bad guys that need to be held accountable, and that's pretty much where I'm going with this. I have quite a few friends. I get a lot of friend requests. I often don't accept them, but those people are able to follow me, and because my Facebook page is public at this point anyway, pretty much anyone can visit and sort of see what I'm up to. I also have a group that I run on Facebook, which is called the Planetary Liberation Front. We only have, we're going on a couple hundred members, but I post a lot of content here as well, and other people do resistance-related content, but also spiritual content and various sorts of things. And it's sort of a mixed bag as well, but it's a nice little group of people, and we all really enjoy each other. So the bulk of my writing these days, although I used to write quite a lot on Quora, and I also write on LinkedIn, I blog on LinkedIn, but most of it is via Medium at this point, and Medium has just emerged as the most amazing platform for journalists and amateur writers and all sorts of other people as well. So I really like Medium a lot. So I have a publication called the Planetary Liberation Front. We have about 10 authors, various people, but I have a whole huge section here that's all about resistance and different sorts of things. I'm also a futurist, so we have a section about futurism, and we even have some Galactic Federation of Light channeled messages here at the bottom, which is a bit of a rabbit hole for most people, but maybe I'll cover that in a later talk. But Medium is pretty easy to use. You just sign up for an account. It has hashtags and all sorts of publications. You can look at editors' picks, you can look at nepotism, hacking democracy, and all of these kinds of things. So here's an interesting article someone wrote. What will you do if Donald Trump deports me? Right? This is an undocumented immigrant, and he is obviously concerned about this. So I typically follow all these people, and I recommend their articles, and I will usually at least scan them, and then I will often tweet them to whichever account I happen to be working on at that time. But I take a look at things, and sometimes I will also highlight things, which you can do in Medium. You can also do something else which is quite cool with Medium. You can highlight a bit of text, and if you click the little Twitter button, it will actually tweet just the excerpt, which I think is really nifty. So I do that. And so I will usually read through the article, although I'm going through it quite fast at this point. Oh, here Juan is embedded his Twitter account, so I will follow him there as well. Oh, I can't follow anymore with that account, but that's okay. I can still retweet his article. So I tried to follow him again. Some of these things I do automatically at this point, but he's written a pretty amazing piece here, actually, and there are also sometimes comments and things down here, and then there are other articles. So Nation asked Trump to take Sundays off so he can rest. He seems to be on Twitter all the time. So those are the sort of major locations where I'm working on resistance. The other thing to consider is that on Saturday, when the Women's March is going on, I would really like to see as many people as possible tweeting all day long, with various pieces of news about the march and about everything that's going on. So I try to support people as well as I can, both as anonymous but also just as myself. There's a lot of issues here with unions and all of this kind of thing. So that's probably enough for now, but that will give you a little bit of an idea of how I go about my business. I would encourage you to seek out and follow as many women's march and resistance leaders and other people as you possibly can. We can sort of unite as a community here online, and voices individually might not be all that powerful. Not everyone can go viral, but the combined effect of our voices and our efforts to amplify other voices we agree with, is really important. And it is the reason why some efforts, if you consider No DAPL, if you consider Black Lives Matter, if you consider the Occupy movement or Anonymous, this is what helps us succeed. We're all in this together, and we all need to promote the sorts of content and truths that we think are important. It's our way of fighting this tyranny. So I would encourage you to do as much of that as you possibly can. I'll follow up soon with a couple of other videos. I'll show you other things that I do, but if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer them. So nice to meet you all virtually. Thank you very much.